YouTube. So today we're gonna do a video on how to change the brakes on rear brakes on a Volvo XC-90 2010. These vehicles do come in all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. However, to do the brakes is going to be the same procedure. Now, one of the things that I want to show you on this particular car is this owner did not. Well, we'll just say it like this: they got all their money out of their brake pads. Okay, so and that's not really a good thing. I'm kind of being sarcastic there because the owners actually kind of cost themselves some money there by not having it done. As we see on that side, you see your rotor in there. That's your rotor there. Okay, and then you look down here and you see the caliper right there, and there's the brake pad. See all that down in there? Well, let's go over here to this side. And what do we have? The owner was complaining about having bad brakes, not good, or the vehicle not stopping real well. Well, look at that. Look at the damage here on this wheel. Okay, but look, notice the rotor's gone. Okay, that rotor is completely gone. All right, that's why it's important that if your rotor is too thin, to go ahead and replace it instead of trying to cut it down with a lathe or something. And we'll notice back there, I don't know who did that, but you see that clothes hanger wire right here? Right there? Yeah, that's the caliper. Look at that. Caliper just fell completely off of this vehicle. Or someone took it off one. Look at the slide. But see, the piston's not in there, and it's dripping brake fluid. So what we'll have to do is replace the caliper as well as the rotor, and then we'll need to bleed the brake system. This is a case where, this is a prime example of a case where you'll have to do a brake job and you'll have to bleed the system after you get through with the job, because the fluid line has been broken. You see the fluid dripping out there. Anytime you have a break in a fluid line on a hydraulic brake system, you will need to bleed the system to get the air out of the system. So, in inspecting the other wheels, the other pads look pretty good, but for some odd reason, this one here failed. I don't know whether it failed from the caliper or just wear and tear. But we're going to tear all that off. Again, this is a 2010 Volvo XC90. First thing we'll do is we'll take the wheel off, and then we'll get started. This side has kind of already been done a little bit, since we have the caliper already out of the way of the rotor here. In order to get this rotor off, you'll need to remove the hold down screws here. Usually they'll have a little bit different type of bolt in it. Someone's obviously changed that. But you'll take this bolt out, and this piece will come off. You may need to take a hammer and tap it, okay, to make this come off, and it'll slide right off the flange. So we're going to get that bolt out, and then we'll tap this off. Alright, so we'll pull that bolt out. There you go. Now we'll take a hammer and tap that, and that'll fall right off. See that? The whole piece comes off. As I said, this is supposed to have a lot more to it. I'll show you the new one and the old one when the new one comes in. They're delivering it. Now under this, these are your parking brakes. Okay, when you do this, I recommend taking some brake parts cleaner and spray all that and clean that stuff off. That'll allow your parking brake to have better contact and work better. Also, that contacts inside of that there on the inside of the rotor. So the rotor has a dual purpose. You have parking brake, and then the actual brakes, whenever you're driving, apply here. And again, here's the caliper that we'll be replacing. I'm gonna call these parts in. And start on this side, because this side is still intact. You have your rotor, your pads, This is a spring clip to keep the caliper locked on to the caliper. Onto the bracket. So the first step is I like to use a simple C-clamp. Some people will go out and buy the tool. There's a little tool they sell, but you have to take it off and then you have to use it. But with a C-clamp, I like it because you can simply push the piston, you can compress that caliper back in, caliper piston back in without having to take anything off the car. And simply just take it, put it on there, clamp it down, and then turn it. It's so easy with a C-clamp. Can't really justify spending a lot of money on a tool that I'm not really going to use, and it's not going to work any better than what I already have. So once you compress that caliper in, then there we go. And mind you, I'm doing this with one hand and filming, so makes it very easy. Alright, so now that you have your caliper piston pushed in, what you're going to do is you'll remove these caps back here on the bag. Okay? There's one at the top, one at the bottom. Now there's going to be a tool that slides in there. See what that looks like. That'll be a tool that goes right in there. So I can see it. It's going to be a hex socket. It goes right there. Yeah, I'm going to get a hex socket to go right there. We'll unloosen that, and then this caliper will detach from the bracket. Now before you do that, what you'll want to do is take your screwdriver and pry this spring clip off out of the way. Okay? Pry that out. Remove that out of the way. And I'm going to go get our hex socket. We'll pull that off, and then we'll have access to our pads up under there. Okay, so this is going to take the 7mm hex socket, or you could use a 1/4 inch. The quarter inch, if you don't have a metric size, will fit, as well as the 7mm. And as you see, you turn that will pull this pin out. As you can see, the pin's right there. Alright, so once you have this pin loosened up, and that pin loosened out right there, then you should be able to simply grab this and pull it. Alright, there's your caliper. It's off. There's your new pad, well, your old pad. What you'll want to do is take your C-clamp and push that on in, get that fully compressed in. Now, since we're changing this caliper here, this rotor here, we've already pulled the screw, but you'll notice that there's this piece here. This is your caliper mounting bracket. You'll need to take these two bolts here, this bolt here, and that bolt there out, and this bracket will come out of the way, and then you'll be able to knock this completely off. Alright, so we're going to get the tool to take that off and show you what that looks like. Alright, so we have these bolts here are 13mm. Again, if you don't have a metric set, I think it's a 1/2 in standard. It'll work, be a little tight, but it'll work. Now, this caliper bracket, when you take it off, you notice it'll be tight. A lot of times you'll find there'll be thread locker used on the bolts of these, because you don't want this bracket to fall off, because if this bracket falls off or comes loose, then you're not going to have braking on this wheel. Okay? So you want to make sure you get some thread locker when you put those bolts back in, and also you want to torque them down really good too. Alright, there's two of them. There's one at the top, one at the bottom. Another quick tip I want to give you, see that wrench right there? Look at that. See how easy that swivels? Okay. If you don't have one of these swivel head wrenches like this, I highly recommend you get one. It makes the job so much easier. You know, a lot of the wrenches, you'll get them, they won't have that swivel on it. They'll just be straight. Well, if that were the case, I'd be busting my knuckles all up against this frame piece here. So instead, I can swivel this handle out of the way, and I still have good turnability on the screw or bolt. All right, so we'll remove those two. Now that bracket comes off. Now we'll take a hammer, tap that, and that rotor will come off. On these, some people will, you know, try to turn them, but it's recommended that you use new rotors on foreign cars like BMW, Volvo, Jaguar, stuff like that. It's recommended that you always get new rotors and replace those because they're pretty rough on the rotors. Usually by the time they come off, they're not in any shape to be reused anyway. And you see how thin it is. If I were to turn it, there wouldn't be anything left to there you go. There's your rotor off. There wouldn't be anything left, you know, to substantiate you using it on the car. All right, so now that we have that off, we're going to use some brake parts cleaner. We're going to clean out the springs, any extra dust. Now, I did one of these videos before, and the guy was like, "Oh, you're using cleaner. Why use a cleaner when you have compressed air? You could just use the compressed air." Well, a little secret about the compressed air is if you use compressed air on brake part stuff like this, what's going to happen is all that little fine dust and particles is going to be in the air, and then you'll be breathing it in your lungs. Later on, they tell you got lung cancer. Don't be surprised. But with this cleaner, it's going to moisten all the brake dust, the harmful particles, and it's going to fall out. It's going to keep it from flying around in the air. All right. Now on this side, notice this caliper bracket is broken. All right, see that right there? It's broke. It's supposed to look like that. So this will have to be replaced as well. And buying a new caliper, usually they'll come with a brand new bracket because of situations like that. So we're going to take that caliper off in just a second. And that bracket, there's a core charge on those pieces. They actually charge more for the core charge than they charge for the new parts. So we're going to get that off and wait for the delivery guy. Parts! We have parts.
Yep.
Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. We have new rotors, new caliper, and new brake pads.
Yep.
Now let's check, make sure we have a caliper bracket on this. Remember, the caliper that I told you about, ladies and gentlemen, has a core on it. So we want to give them the old one back. They actually charge more for the core than they do for the actual new part. Well, that was kind of interesting. So we have caliper and the bracket that we were talking about, the very important mounting bracket, and they give you a new spring too. These parts are being sponsored today by AutoZone. Doing a great job. Thank you. All right, so we're going to give them the old stuff. See the old stuff there? See how that's broke? We're going to take the old broke stuff because we don't want to be charged for that. And I'm going to go handle the financial portion of the business with my delivery guy. And then we'll be back to the video. All right, so there's our old rotor, portion of our old rotor. Let's look at this new rotor. Look at that. Look at that. That's a big difference from what she had. New rotor, old rotor. I hate to see cars. I hate to see people driving cars with you know, in this bad of shape. I mean, this, you know, it's one thing to risk your life, but when you're driving something like that, you're actually risking the lives of others around you. Because if you can't stop your vehicle, that just slides on like that. All right. Then remember that little bolt we took out? We're going to take that little bolt, stick it right there, and your rotor's installed. Next thing we'll do is we'll put our caliper on. Well, first we're going to, the caliper just this line basically just screws onto the caliper. So basically just spin that on, torque it down. The rest of it is just the reverse of removal. So remember the little bolt we took out? Stick that there, and what that does is that holds the rotor down. This is a 10mm bolt on here. So I'll get a 10mm wrench, tighten that down. Give it just a second. Alright, get that tight. Now we'll get our new caliper. This is our new caliper here. Okay. Now, the easy thing to do would be to take it apart. Take these out. Again, it's going to be with your 7mm. That'll remove the bracket. Okay. That's nice lubed up. Or you can actually just slide the bracket out. But either way, you'll need to remove those pins before you put it back, before you put this back on there. Okay? Makes it a lot easier. The pins normally stay inside these grooves here. They don't slide out. Alright, so I'm going to screw this piece on to the hose fitting there and mount the bracket, and then I'll show you how to put your pads in. Okay. So I decided I want to put the bracket on first, and then I'll put the studs on. Alright. I'm going to torque that down real good. Alright. Now you can see how that looks. You got the bracket there, and your rotor. Rotor's pinned down. Alright, we'll take these two studs off, and then we'll put our caliper on. Alright, so these are your pads to go on this. Pretty easy, pretty simple. You'll notice two sides. Alright, that side slides in there like so. See how that locks in? Okay. This other side, I actually clip into the caliper. See those pins there? Locks it in place. Alright. Then you simply slide that on. Alright. Push your pin in that we took off in the back, lock that down, and that's your pads. Okay? And the last step is we'll put that little spring clamp back on right there. Okay, I want to show you something. I want to show you something a little different. On this side here, this pin here, and to get a tool in there is kind of tight if you don't have any small tools. So I want to show you a different method you could use to get this thing done whenever you're in close quarters like that. What you can do is you can take the bracket back off. Okay, take your bracket back off, and then you can actually take the pad out, put this back together. You can slide that in, okay? Put that down. Slide that back together. Now what you can do is you can load this caliper with the pads off the vehicle like so. Okay. And once you load it like that, now you can take this whole caliper and bracket assembly and slide it onto your rotor. Alright. That way you don't have to fight with putting these pins in if you don't have a tool that's long enough or short enough to go in there and turn those pins. Okay. Like I say, on these cars you have close tolerances, so it kind of gets kind of hard to get a tool in there. So if you just take the whole bracket off as an assembly, it makes it easier. And then when you're putting it back, all you have to do is just take these two bolts here, the caliper bracket bolts, and put them back in. And now you're done. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. That makes it a whole lot easier as opposed to trying to fight with that bottom pin. So after you have your bracket on, the next thing I want to do, put your spring on. Okay. I recommend using like a knife or a screwdriver or something. Sometimes a hammer too will help. Basically, you feed one side and start the other side and just lift and push that under. That's that. Alright, so we'll tighten these back bolts up, make sure everything's tight, and that's it. And the last thing, you want to put your caps back on there. These are just dust caps to keep dust and stuff from going into your heads on those hex head bolts. So that concludes today's video that I wanted to show you. If you have any questions, post, chat, comment, please subscribe. I hope this helped you out greatly. For those of you that need to do brakes on the Volvo XC-90, it's not a hard job, pretty easy. Like I said, you do want to get those mountain bracket bolts tight back there. If you have any questions, post, chat, subscribe, and the last thing that you do, of course, is put the wheels back on the car. So until next time, YouTube, have a great day.